You know, when you begin to journey with God, and God sincerely wants to help you, one of the things He will do is to open you up to the scrolls. So you tap into knowledge that is not corrupt or defiled. It is in those chambers that you can find out and understand the things that truly matter. We are in a noisy world. All kinds of sounds. If you don't journey into that place of stillness, you may walk through life and not really discern what matters. You know, Jesus was speaking, and He made some very striking statements in Mark chapter 4, verse 19. The things that men pursue after, the things that define our daily walk, Jesus called them distractions. The cares of this world. Now, the cares of this world are legitimate concerns. It's not a sin. What to eat, what to wear, where to lay your head. This is not sin. These are legitimate things. But when He began to speak from the heights of Zion, He said these things are a distraction. He now spoke about the deceitfulness of riches. How can a man labor, and when he finally apprehends, you now discover that ingrained intrinsically in the wealth acquired is a technology that deceives. And so when you start trusting God, perhaps what you call a breakthrough is to come to that point where you have some level of authority in wealth and finances. But Jesus began to speak from realms undefiled. And He said, if you are not careful, that point of attainment, you will collide with a wisdom that is not of God. And that which you acquire will become the very thing that will deceive you out of reality. You now begin to wonder, what then should we live for? Because He didn't stop there. He now went further to other desires. And so what Jesus was teaching is the fact that any other thing you desire apart from God can ensnare you. And so there has to be a parameter of judgment, of guidance that helps you to monitor your desire. Because a point may come, your desire can become the reason why you walk out of God. And so He was not addressing sin here, but He was talking about legitimate things that can take the place of God. And so you will need God to whisper into your spirit to understand the things that really matter. And so when I saw the theme for this conference, I knew there are elders. There are elders in this kingdom that ascend above all to look upon hallowed things and point out the things that count. And one of such is what we are about to discuss this morning. The mystery of the fullness. The fullness. You know, God speaking to me, He told me, one of the things that is prime in my heart is intimacy. He said, if men will understand that nothing compares to just standing in His presence, just stand there. Just stand. He said that's the greatest achievement of humankind. The ability to just stand. Elijah was in the palace. He said, before God, whom I stand. Not everybody has that kind of stature in Zion. When the angel Gabriel came to Zacharias, he looked at him and spoke. And Zacharias doubted him. He said, do you know me? I stand in the presence. Not every creature stand here. He said, who shall ascend the mountains of God? Who shall stand on His holy hills? You can have 1 billion people in the world. Not many can stand. And so if you are not careful, You may walk through time pursuing things and you may never stand. And when time is accomplished and you leave the envelope of reality into the realm where things matter, you will discover you are a stranger. And when the mortals look upon you, they will ask, who are you? Isaiah said, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord. This was a national prophet. But suddenly, he came where immortals stand. And he discovered he was a prophet, but he didn't have a place. And he said, woe unto me. So a man can walk through time and begin to curse himself in eternity because he doesn't have a place. He's naked where things really matter. Woe unto me. He said, I'm a man of unclean lips. I dwell among a people of unclean lips. How come I walked through time and I didn't have a place here? Intimacy. Simple word, but eternally heavy. And then, when I looked at the subject of the fullness, I wish somebody will make this his ambition. I just wish somebody made attaining this height his ambition. The ultimate manifestation of Jesus was not a miracle. The ultimate manifestation of Jesus was not the fact that he could raise the dead. Because there's a realm where people don't die. Raising the dead is necessary because he came into a fallen world. And so he needed to restore men. His ultimate manifestation was not to heal the sick. There's a realm where the body knows no corruption. The ultimate manifestation of Jesus was the fact that he could host the fullness of God. In Colossians chapter 2 verse 9, it said he pleased the Father. Now, if you are wondering why he said, this is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased, this is the foundation. He pleased the Father that in him should all the fullness of the Godhead should dwell bodily. The ultimate manifestation of Jesus is the fact that for the first time, there was a location in the creations of God where God could be trapped. Because before the emergence of Christ, there was nowhere you could find the fullness of God. It was impossible. In fact, when Paul was teaching in 1 Timothy chapter 1 verse 16, it said, God dwells in light that is unapproachable. And God is light. That means God dwells in God. There's nowhere you can find God except in God. So God was secluded from creation. Every time God steps into creation, it was measures that were put in creation, even in heaven. Because there is a realm beyond heaven. If you study Ephesians chapter 4 verse 10, it says when Jesus ascended, he ascended above all heaven. There is a height above all heavens. Heaven is not the highest realm. There is a height where no creature can attain. That's where God hides himself. But oftentimes, God will want creation to participate with him. So he brings different measures and different dimensions of him into creation. In fact, the reason the 24 elders cannot stop bowing is because they've not exhausted the dimensions. When they look up, they see a dimension. They worship that dimension. When they look up again, they see another one. They worship. And they look up, they see another one. And they have been doing that forever and ever. But for the first time, a man walked through the city of Galilee. And when they checked, the Father, the Son, and the Spirit was walking bodily. It became a mystery that the world cannot understand. The first time the fullness of God was hosted was in the person of Christ. And so the greatest manifestation of Christ was his ability to trap the fullness of God in bodily form. He captured the whole of God. He captured the totality of God. He kept God within his chambers. That's why Hebrews chapter 1 from verse 1 to 3 say, God, who at sundry times and in diverse manners spake in time past unto the fathers by the prophets, hath in this last day spoken to us by his Son, who being the heir of all things, the brightness of his glory, the express image of his person. Jesus was the full manifestation of the glory and of the brightness of God. The first time God could be trapped was in Christ Jesus. And when Jesus left this world, it wasn't his intention at all for us to carry measures. And so in John chapter 1 verse 16, he said of his fullness. He was the fullness. Now he said of his fullness have we all received. Of his fullness have we all received from grace to grace. So as we journey from one level of grace to grace, what we are doing is the business of the fullness. What we are doing is to attain the fullness of the stature. That's why Ephesians 4:11, he said, is to some he gave to be apostles, to some he gave to be prophets, to some he gave to be evangelists, to some he gave to be pastors and teachers for the equipping. That means we needed to be trained to come into experiential manifestation of the fullness of God that is in our spirit. So the job of the apostle is not to heal the sick. The job of the apostle is not to prophesy prosperity. He will do that because there are still people growing. But the job of the apostle is to mentor the believer into the fullness. Because if you get into the fullness, sickness does not exist there. If you get into the fullness, poverty does not exist there. It said to mentor. The word is katatismos. It means to equip you with light until you become a custodian and a manifesto of the fullness of God. That's why I said, henceforth, not being tossed to and fro by every wind of doctrine, but we will come into the fullness of the measure of the stature of Christ. So when you find a believer should be a replica of Jesus. If you find a believer that you can distinguish between him and Christ, he has not come into the fullness. The idea behind the fullness is to mass express God. So when you come to church, you find God sitting. When you go to the market, you find custodians carrying dimensions of God, walking on the street. This is why Christianity is not another religion. We respect all the religions of the world, but this is divinity expressed through humanity. This is mortality swallowed up by immortality. And so when we look at you, Paul said, henceforth know we no man after the flesh. When I see you, I want to see the first dimension of Christ that radiates.